3 teaser trailers later, and we finally got a full theatrical trailer for Code Geass: Lelouch of the Resurrection, complete with 90 straight seconds of short revealing clips, various dialogue cuts which were so kindly subtitled by Funimation, and an already emotional feeling soundtrack. So you bet your ass that I'm here to overanalyze the shit out of this trailer. Now, let's begin. The first 4 seconds are spent on a narrative flashback of the end of R2, with the narrator talking about how Lelouch gave up his own life to bring about world peace, which, if you remember from the last teaser, only lasted 2 years. Yup, that's still really depressing to think about. So they follow this up with a bunch of recycled shots from previous teasers, so I'm just going to skip all those since I've talked about them in the past. Links to the past trailer analyses will be in the description. Okay, so we have seen this scene before, where Suzaku is taking off the Zero mask. But this time we have some accompanying dialogue, and this dialogue is actually very important. If you remember from the last teaser trailer, Suzaku and Nunnally appeared to be ambushed by the rogue nation of Jerec Stan. Knowing this, it's probably safe to assume that this event takes place somewhere near the beginning, right when the action is about to start. But when Suzaku says, "You broke the peace Lelouch left us," he uses Lelouch by name, meaning that the person that he's talking to is aware of the fact that Lelouch was the master planner behind the Zero Requiem. Of course, it could just be his inner thoughts or Suzaku talking to himself, but I personally don't think that to be the case. This could imply that the people who are ambushing him, the ones from the rogue nation of Jerec Stan, are being led by someone who was there during the main storyline. Someone who witnessed Lelouch bring about world peace, but decided that wasn't good enough and proceeded with their own agenda. Suzaku calls this person out by saying they broke the peace Lelouch left. It was probably a statement directed towards the new entity from the next scene, because the following dialogue and clips fit together nicely like pieces to a puzzle that we can easily put together. The next line, which comes from the new entity, is directed towards Suzaku, and he says, "You wouldn't choose death except to protect someone. That's all the data we figured out," while showing scenes of Suzaku being tortured and most likely interrogated. Assuming this is after Suzaku has been ambushed and captured by the new rogue nation, that means the new being and the Jerec Stan rogues are working together to undo the Zero Requiem. As I said, this new being is also probably the person that Suzaku was talking to when he said they broke Lelouch's peace, once again implying that they know of Suzaku and Lelouch's plan from R2. Which makes you wonder then, what could they be interrogating him for? What information do they need from Suzaku? Which brings us back to what the new being said. He first states, "You wouldn't choose death," potentially meaning that Lelouch's Geass is still in effect from the time when he ordered Suzaku to live. I'm unsure as to whether Geass effects disappear or still remain active after the person who's commanding it dies, but getting the answer to that question could lead to a hint as to whether Lelouch is alive or not. Either way, Suzaku's noted to still want to live, but with the exception of when it's to protect someone. That's apparently fact, a piece of data as recorded by the new being. Perhaps his technology is capable of detecting the type of Geass that is influencing a person. As for why he's capable of dying for someone else, well, my theory is that since Lelouch is supposedly dead, the effects his orders have had on Suzaku are now weaker, and if Suzaku really wills himself, he can bypass them, allowing him to accept his death when it's to protect someone else's life. Just knowing that he's trying to protect someone also gives us an idea of what they're interrogating him for. Most likely it's to find out the location of C2. If you're thinking it's Lelouch, I don't think they'd be asking where he is, because that's much too blunt of a hint for a trailer. And it does make sense later on that this enemy faction is trying to track down C2, as you'll soon see. In the next scene, we're introduced to a new Geass user. You'll quickly see that it's only manifested in one eye, so his contract is still in its early stages. The entity that was interrogating Suzaku is the likely candidate for the contract maker. His attire clearly indicates his allegiance to Jerec Stan, but what's important to note as well are these soldiers in the background. They had showed up in the last teaser, and I assumed them to be from a different faction unrelated to Jerec Stan, due to their completely different Spec Ops-like gear. But it would seem that they're all together. The new entity, the rogue nation of Jerec Stan, and their various soldiers are apparently all fighting together against Suzaku, Nunnally, and New Britannia. So we have this new Geass user, who's also voiced by the same guy who did the giraffe from Review Starlight. Great show, by the way. And he says,
ところで、誰が味方で誰が敵かわかるかな?
while simultaneously activating his Geass, and this appears to be directed towards Kallen, who, according to different sources, was ordered by Schneisel to infiltrate Jerec Stan with Lloyd and Sayoko. But clearly that didn't work out, as she's been captured by this mysterious Geass user. Based on the questions that he's asking and how his Geass is triggered by it, I believe his Geass creates a false relationship in the target's head, making them lose trust in the people they're close with, and causing them to naturally ally with whoever he intends them to. It makes sense considering a scene that we see towards the end, where C2 and Kallen are in a standoff with each other, but we'll get to that in a bit. Regardless, the outcome stays the same. The Jerec Stan Geass holder uses his Geass to de-escalate the situation and potentially even turn Kallen to their side. Next, we have what could very well be the main public villain. I mean, look how high up she is in the visual. And considering that she's directly across from Nunnally, indicating her role as a contrasting character, my guess would be that she's the leader of Jerec Stan. She's shown to be the one who has Nunnally captured, and her appearance just boasts that of someone in power. What I think happened is that she met this being, who I consider to be the main villain from the shadows, and they joined forces so that the Jerec Stan army could be led by Geass-holding generals to end the existing world peace. That's not all that I'm thinking though, there's definitely something more, and we'll get to that really soon. She's shown to have Nunnally, and says that, at this point, I don't mind if Nunnally dies. The way she phrases this statement is a bit weird. My initial thoughts were that Nunnally was supposed to be bait to draw someone more important out. But because she said, at this point, it implies that at some point she may have cared for Nunnally's life. Which got me thinking even more. This may be a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if this lady is related to the Britannian royal bloodline. Same as Lelouch and same as Nunnally. Now, just hear me out, please. Not only does the blonde hair seem to not be a native trait of the people of Jerec Stan, but the purple eyes is what's selling it for me right now. Lelouch, Nunnally, Cornelia, Euphemia, and Schneisel all have purple eyes. Even Marianne and Charles have purple eyes too. The only other person I could find that had purple eyes was Rollo. But honestly, I think that was probably genetically modified to make him appear as Lelouch's family. And yes, I did check the eye color of every major character in the series. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here and place my bets now. The mysterious woman who appears to be leading the Jerec Stan rebellion against Britannia and Nunnally is related to the V Britannia family. Okay, so when I was editing the video, I decided to take a closer look at her eye color just to make sure that they were purple for sure. I mean, they could be dark blue or the dark room could be affecting the color of them, but I'm fairly certain that they're purple here. So I thought, why not go verified in the visual? I go open the visual, zoom in on her eyes, and guess what? They're green. Not even remotely close to what they are in the trailer. So I'm now either an idiot for making you listen to that whole theory, or the people who made this trailer messed up by putting in a scene that has her with purple eyes. Either way, something's not adding up. Okay, now back to the video. Of course, those design features aren't for sure indicators of lineage, so please let me know who you think she is. Okay, putting that info bomb aside, next we have a character either named or speaking to someone named Namjala Latak. Regardless, he also looks to be like one of the generals of the Jerec Stan army, and he's greeting someone in a manner that's likely unique to Jerec Stan. To me, even this brief gesture has some significance because of how obscure it is. Him placing his hand over his eye as a sincere introduction leads me to believe that it's a form of homage, a way to respect the power of Geass that has given their country the ability to challenge the world. Maybe Geass has taken such a deep-rooted hold on this Jerec Stan society that it influences even their culture. Or I could just be reading too much into a simple hand movement. Moving on, he speaks of everything going to plan as a normal villain would, followed by various brief clips. The first being members of the Jerec Stan nation and their army being transported, all while under the control of Geass. I don't think there's too much to read into here, other than some wild speculation into what the Geass power could be, who's controlling it, and what their intentions are. But if their own citizens are under the power of Geass, that means their nation is built over false leadership, one that wouldn't stand if their citizens still had free thought. Then we see the Jerec Stan Nightmare pilot who fought Suzaku in the last trailer. Based on the outfit of the person he's talking to, it looks like a variant of this one, indicating that he's probably with the mysterious being. The location itself also presents a bit more context to the scene. Judging by the way that the lights are set up in the background, as well as the arrangement of pillars, They appear to be in an excavation site of the ruins of a long-forgotten temple, perhaps a newly found thought elevator location. Which leads nicely into the next shot, because I'm certain this takes place in the world of C. Not only that, but there's a significant resemblance to the Sword of Akasha. Just take a closer look at the layout of the ruins, and the way the Sword of Akasha's temple-like structure used to be. Someone's clearly been messing around in the world of C, and it's not looking like it's in great shape since Lelouch left it. As for the purple orb, the red branches of dark energy, and the small beam of blue light, well, that's as much a mystery to me as it is to you. This is followed by C2 reaching out in an attempt to grab something as it turns to ashes, potentially while also in the world of C. And as she loses hold of whatever it is, she sheds a tear that the camera follows as it turns into a purple ball. I don't think that it's related to the purple orb that we saw in the previous scene, but there's definitely something symbolic happening here. And there's only two things that I can think of that would make C2 cry if they turn to ash: Lelouch and pizza. It would make sense too that C2 saw Lelouch in the world of C, since that is where all humans go when they die. It could even be the setting for where Lelouch's resurrection takes place. The dialogue that happens alongside this scene is unrelated to the on-screen events. It's the voice of the royal lady demanding to know where the root of men's consciousness is. I think that was meant to translate to the collective human unconscious, which, if you recall, was what Charles was trying to destroy by triggering Ragnarok. I'm hoping that's not what the motive of this new lady is, but I wouldn't put it against them if they did reuse the idea. Perhaps Marianne transferred her consciousness once again to try to activate the Ragnarok connection. Though I don't see how that would be possible, as she literally disintegrated to nothingness. Next we have a good guy for once, a nightmare pilot breaking into Jerec Stan to retrieve Zero, aka Suzaku from this base here, which literally screams villain hideout. Then we get another shot of the excavation site, which, as I said, I believe to be a location of a thought elevator. Though that doesn't really matter anymore since the whole place just imploded. Pretty much whoever was in that site is now either dead or transported to the world of C, which, when you think about it, is technically the same thing. It is possible it could be linked to the explosion that Cornelia saw in the first teaser trailer. After this, we're shown a slew of events involving everyone's favorite maid ninja, Sayoko, then the Britannian nightmare researcher Lloyd, and then Kallen once again, presenting scenes that fall in line with the previously mentioned covert infiltration mission involving the three of them and their subsequent capture. From what we're shown, it really doesn't leave any room for speculation. Sayoko and Lloyd very clearly get captured, though Sayoko seems to put up more of a fight. It's more the looks of distress on Kallen and Lloyd's face that are getting me worried about a potential character death. Meanwhile, the dialogue over these scenes is Suzaku talking about his role as Zero. There's a feeling of nervousness behind his voice, as if he's trying to convince the one he's talking to that he's truly Zero. Here, take a listen.
ゼロなんですから。世界のために己を捧げると誓った存在です。
As for who he's convincing, well, that's a whole nother question. We then see Suzaku encountering C2, after what I assume to be his rescue from Jerec Stan. Just the fact that C2 is implied to be there, along with what looks to be like treatment to his wounds, as indication by the bandages on his head, is enough to present an idea of the current situation, likely taking place shortly after the green-haired nightmare pilot busted into the base to rescue Zero. Next, we see C2's hands touching some ruins, followed by her activating her code. She could very well be bestowing somebody with the power of Geass in this scene. It's during this that C2 also has some lines about a promise that she still needs to keep, though I can't quite pinpoint what she's talking about here, so if you could help me out, then that'd be great. The next lines come from the mysterious Jerec Stan Royal, who makes yet another appearance, accompanied by a rather weird statement. She says, "Once again, you people have died," which, in a literal sense, means the people she's referring to have died more than once. If that was all she said, then I would have speculated on a Geass that brought the dead back to life. But she follows it up with a chuckle and the line, "Fate is amusing," as if to imply that something deeper is in play, something that's out of her control. Alongside this, we see a reflection of Zero in a liquid substance at what seems to be a research lab, and I'm inclined to say that every appearance of Zero in this trailer will be Suzaku, but knowing that Suzaku's been captured at most likely the beginning of the movie, then proceeds to get heavily injured from his interrogation, leads me to think that the number of scenes he has as a fully masked Zero are limited. Now, it wouldn't be a Code Geass trailer if we didn't have some good mech fight scenes, and that's exactly what we got, featuring the Lancelot, the Gurren Mark whatever, and then the Jerec Stan mech. The way they cut this trailer together though, makes it hard to determine the pilot of the enemy mech. I mean, last preview we saw Suzaku in the Shinkiro fighting against what I'm sure we all thought to be the Jerec Stan general in this bulky mech. But here they cut straight from the new mech to the new entity, making me question who's piloting what now. I remember at the beginning of the preview they showed a spider mech, and previously we got a cockpit view of the Jerec Stan pilot. It appears his is much more compact than your typical Nightmare, so I wouldn't be surprised if the spider mech was his and the bulky one was his. The new key visual also heavily implies that that's the case as well. What's interesting here too is that I believe this is the first time out of all the trailers that we see the Lancelot, and not the Shinkiro-infused Lancelot version. It's always so nostalgic to see the most memorable mechs make the return. As we near the end now, we finally get to see who the mysterious person fighting C2 was. I predicted that it would be someone from the Black Knights, and lo and behold, we have Kallen. Though this fight seems kind of intense, cause I'm sure they both had more than a few good moments to look at each other and realize that they're allies, leading back to when that new Geass user had used his powers on Kallen. He probably used his Geass to make Kallen into an ally, then ordered her to find C2, which is exactly what she did. My only doubts with this theory is that Kallen doesn't have a noticeable glow in her eyes dictating an influence of Geass. And it could be from an unrelated scene, but she says in an argumentative voice, "This is what Lelouch wished for," making me think that she's arguing with C2, which could lead to the subsequent fight. And here we are at the big close. Zero in his Lelouch-like stance with a brand new helmet and small little piece of jewelry which bears a lot of significance. Just like you, I truly want this to be Lelouch, but even with the new outfit and the gem, I still can't say for certain that this is him. Though that gem is really swaying me as it was part of his Emperor outfit and was an accessory to the Emperor sword. I'm still not convinced though, not until I actually see his face. The trailer then ends with an emotional line from C2, along with the end of what I assume to be the opening by Leo Lieri, titled Kono yo Sekai yo. Honestly, after seeing this and really looking into it, I'm really hyped to see how this turns out, especially if they bring in another V Britannia family member. That's not something I'm expecting to happen, but would be a good twist nonetheless. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of things to take in with this trailer, but I feel I was able to cover a good chunk of it. Obviously, how I perceive certain things is going to be different from how you do, so please do share your thoughts, theories, and opinions, because I'm sure I'm not the only one whose imagination went wild after watching this. Just leave them down in the comments and let's get some good discussions going. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!